We are delighted to have with us our keynote speaker for the evening, Mr. Bala Parthasarathy. Bala is the director at People+AI, an initiative backed by Mr. Nandan Nilekani, Step Foundation. The objective of People+AI is to create a space for conversations about the impact new AI technologies will have on people, purpose, and economic impact. Bala is currently serving as the chairman and co-founder of MoneyTap, India's most profitable neobank based in Bangalore. He was also the founding partner of Prime Ventures, India's #1 seed venture capital, and worked with Nandan Nilekani at Aadhaar. Before moving back to India, he did multiple startups in the Silicon Valley, where he lived for 17 years, including Snapfish that was sold to HP. Bala is originally from Chennai and completed his BTech in chemical engineering from IIT Madras. On the personal front, Bala enjoys hiking, traveling, scuba diving, skiing, reading, yoga, and meditation. He has traveled extensively to more than 80 countries, crossed the Sahara Desert, climbed Kilimanjaro, trekked in the Himalayas, Andes, Sierras, and Alps. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Bala Parthasarathy. Over to you, Mr. Bala.
First of all, thank you very much, Pratna. Thank you, Sudha and the FFE team. It's sort of my privilege and honor to be here and talking to all of you. The topic I've picked for today's discussion is generative AI. And since there are too many of you, I cannot do a quick poll to say how many of you are heard about it, how many of you have done something about it, how many of you are actively working on it. So I'm just going to assume that many of you know what I'm going to talk about ChatGPT and AI. Some of you might know it very deeply, some of you might not know it very deeply, but I'm going to give you sort of my perspective on it and why I think it's extremely important for you as you're just coming into the next step in your careers. So one of the most important lessons that I've learned in my life, and I've been a professional since I graduated from IIT in 1988. I did my master's in 1991. So I've been in the industry for more than 32 years. And one thing that I've learned is that the big trends matter. Right? So for example, software itself was a very big trend. And in 1986, when I touched my first computer, I didn't really touch it. It was a mainframe computer like this. And it was the size of a room, right? I'm not exaggerating. It literally was as big as a room. Today, of course, all this power of a computer is probably there on your smartphone. And your smartphone is probably more powerful, I would say, than this computer. But what happened in this very big trend of software is that some giant companies got created. So Microsoft is today about $2.5 trillion worth, right? And Microsoft was created on the back of this particular revolution of software when they invented the first operating system and then went on and did many other things. So software was a trend that I have been very lucky to participate in. That was the first trend. I was extremely lucky that I got into software in 1986, actually. Even though obviously the computer has changed, we have smartphones, we have much faster computers, so on and so forth. If you are catching the right trend at the right time, then you can ride it and a lot of good stuff will happen to you. The second trend I've been very lucky to be a part of was the internet. So I started my first internet company right around this time. And at that time, Yahoo was the biggest company in the internet. It looked like this. It looked pretty ugly, to be honest with you. But many other companies came, such as Amazon, for example, which is more than $1 trillion worth, which took advantage of the internet trend. Amazon obviously is not the only company. There are hundreds, not thousands of companies which have benefited from this trend. I will not go into other trends. There are social media trends, there is mobile, there are many other trends, but the trend of your generation is AI. So Sundar Pichai, who's the CEO of Google, is not exaggerating when he says AI will have more profound impact than fire, right? Imagine what fire had on humanity, and electricity and internet. And this is his statement. And he has some basis for it. What this particular graph on the right-hand side shows you, the y-axis is the number of users, and the x-axis is the number of number of days it took to get to that many users. As you can tell, many of the software that you know, including Netflix, took about 10 years. ChatGPT took 2 months. Okay, so when something is going on at this level of pace to get to 100 million users, right? So the y-axis is 100 million users, 10 to the power of 8 is 100 million. So while Netflix took 10 years to get to 100 million users, ChatGPT did that in 2 months. And so this is clearly a trend of your generation. But I'm also going to tell you why is everybody excited? And the answer is everything is going to change. That's why everybody's excited. Everything that we know today in terms of the knowledge economy is going to change. Many of you know what ChatGPT can do. For example, it can translate. I'm going to give you a few examples of what ChatGPT can do. Some of which you already probably know about, some of which you might not know about. For example, ChatGPT, you can ask a question. Hey, I'm a vegetarian. I love paneer paratha in Delhi. What should I get in Mexico? Right? And I asked this question. I said, hey, come up with a couple of more questions like this. Right? Immediately, it came up with the next 2 questions about something in Turkey, something in Argentina, and then it gave me a translation and the answer. Right? So on the right hand side, it's telling me in Spanish that you should eat chiles de nogada in Mexico in Spanish. Right? So it's not only translating the language, but it's also translating culture. Things like cheese. Right? Paneer tikka is cheese. Paneer tikka has got roti in it, and it's translating that into Spanish, and so on and so forth in other languages. So these are things that, having been in the computer for 30 years, nobody thought it could do it, right? Nobody believed. If you had told me that 8 months ago that a computer will come and give you this kind of answer, I would have just laughed at your face. I would have said, this is not possible. Similarly, there is a website called framer.com. You should check it out. You can just give it one prompt and it will generate an entire website for you, right? Just like you give it a one prompt, a whole website gets generated. It's a very new website. It's a very new concept, but you can see how and why this can happen. Similarly in coding, right? So many of you probably have learned coding, but the programming as a field is about to change completely. So Mr. Kunal Shah, who's the founder of Cred, the company you know about, the friend of mine, he put out a tweet. He's saying, hey, has GPT changed your life as a programmer, right? That's what he's asking. And you can see people responding saying, hey, I was able to program 10x faster, right? I was able to program 5x faster, right? And Andre Karpathy, who's one of the leading AI researchers in the world, he says the new programming language is English, right? So what he means by that is that there are tools like Copilot X or GPT-4, which can actually code for you, right? It can code at least about 80% correctly for, and you can take the remaining and then finish the code at remaining 20%. And it can code most of very, very complex things as well. It can generate photos. I'm not an artist. This whole AI deck was created by AI for me with respect to my prompts. For example, I asked, hey, why don't you create a beautiful photo of an Indian princess wearing a sari, right? And this is what it created for me. You can see the quality of this. So in my own company, for example, my design team is starting to use this. To create a photo like this, it would take them weeks, if not months. You have to go find a model, you have to find the sunset, you have to go find a palace, right? And shoot this photo. Instead, I am able to create this photo in like 30 seconds, right? With just a prompt. Similarly, I just created asked for a prompt. Hey, give me a photo of a blue-eyed, German woman with a leopard, right? I mean, obviously you can never create this in real life. You might be able to Photoshop this with a lot of effort, but somebody like me who doesn't even know Photoshop is able to create this in a matter of seconds. It can do very fancy things. For example, you might not have heard of this example. What they did is they took people put them under fMRI machines. fMRI machines are brain scans, and they showed them a bunch of images and they trained the model on this. And then they showed a picture to this person. They did not know what the image was, and it correctly guessed that the image was a giraffe, right? So the computer did not know that we were showing a giraffe, but it correctly guessed it's a giraffe. In other words, it's able to read the mind of the person, right? With some machine learning and some training. So all of this is going to have impact. It's going to have impact across the world, across India, and across the industry. It's going to have two levels of impact. One is going to impact productivity. So if you're a programmer or a QA or a marketing person or a product manager or a business analyst or a data scientist or customer support, Chat GPT and in general generative AI, all large language models as they call, is going to change your life, right? It's going to make you like anywhere between 2 to 10x more productive. But there are some businesses, for example, if you're an education business, ed tech, if you are in marketing in some areas, if you're in designer, for example, the core business model itself is going to change, right? So how you do ed tech is going to be completely different in 6 months to a year from now. And this is not going to take that long for all these changes to happen. I can give many more examples. These are some of the examples of where productivity is going to change. It can read financial statements. It can do graphics. It can summarize YouTube. It can brainstorm with you like it did for creating this slide. It brainstormed with me. Every slide was created with help from GPT for me. Some industries are going to be more impacted. Like I said, ed tech, software developers, call centers, IT services, machine language developers by themselves are going to be impacted. Some of them are going to be less impacted, like e-commerce, fintech is slightly less impacted, transportation, etc. It cannot do a few things as well. So there are areas which human beings are still better, but computers are catching up pretty fast. So for example, it's a very simple problem that I gave it. So it said 8 times 5 plus 9 times 9, which is like 40 plus 81 is 121. Just modify one number on the left so that the right hand will be 139. Right, so 139 is the number difference is 18. So most of you who are all very smart will immediately say, hey, in order to get 18, I probably need to modify one of the two nines to 11, right? 8 times 5 plus 11 times 9 will give me 139. But GPT-4 3.5 did not get it at all. Even GPT-4 kind of flubbed this answer, right? So something like that, it gives you garbage output. So it's not like GPT can solve everything, but it can solve a lot of things. I want to quickly talk about 3 short-term trends that are coming up. One is the number one, and I'm going to go through this in very quickly. So number one is there is a OpenAI you all probably know about, which is Chat GPT, GPT-4 model. But there are new models coming up, which are called open source models. So Google has a big model, and GPT has OpenAI has a big model. But Chimera, there are Vicuna, Phoenix, there are lots of new models coming up, which are all basically free and open source. This is a very big trend, and there could be multiple scenarios here. This could be big models, there could be small models, there could be combo of models, which is what I predict will happen, or something totally new, right? These are all things are moving very fast in this world right now. But if this trend holds, the cost at People+AI on April 1st of this year, which is roughly about 3 months ago, we had a conference and we said that the cost of creating our own model will be about $3 to $5 billion, right? Today, the cost is about $300,000, right? And the cost is going to come down to $50,000 very soon. Pretty soon, you'll have models on your own laptops. You can have all models on your mobile phones, and you don't need like fancy computers, right? So all of these trends are happening. There are something called plugins. Some of you might have used it already. This is kind of like the new App Store, which has been launched. Voice, for example, is actually a new user interface that is becoming very, very popular. This particular example, I won't read out everything to you, but about 1 month ago, I was in a convocation for my daughter in America, and the speaker, somebody like me, was going on and on. They're talking for too long, and I was getting bored. So I switched on the microphone of my Chat GPT app, which has got this thing called Whisper, which is a new API. And I said, so the first part of the sentence within the quotes that you're seeing here is what it listened to, right? I just turned on the mic and it kind of recorded whatever it was transcribing, like a Siri, whatever the person was saying. And then I asked a simple question, hey, where am I? Like, where is this could be heard? It did not have GPS, it did not have Google Maps, nothing. I just turned on the conversation. It listened for like 30 seconds. I switched off the mic and said, where am I? And basically it kind of guessed that I'm at Yale, which is correct, right? So it was very intelligent. It basically guessed on some of the references from the conversation that I must be sitting in Yale listening to a convocation like this, right? So this is kind of almost scary. It's almost like people are listening to you and it can guess what you're doing. There are some long-term trends as well. and I'll probably end with this. So there is something called AGI that people are talking about, which is called artificial general intelligence. I'll give you an example of it. There's something called emergence and multimodality. I'm just going to quickly touch on these things. So AGI there's something called theory of mind, which I won't go into in detail, but this is fundamentally what you think of as being human, right? So being human is about understanding the mental states of people, right? There are 2,000 of you, each of you can understand, like when you walk into a room, you know what your friend is thinking, you know what your sister is thinking, you know what your mother is thinking. You can read their facial expressions, right? And that is something which we think is very human, and a computer cannot really do it, right? And it's correct. Computers could not do it. But if I give a problem like this, which is like a small example of a problem, hey, in the room, there is Bala, which is myself, my son, a cat, a box, and a basket. Eh? So just bear with me on this example. So there is a room, there is me, my son, a cat, a box, and a basket. My son puts the cat in the box and leaves the room. Yeah, the cat has been put into the box and he's gone. I then take the cat and put it in the basket, right? So I change the location of the cat from the box to the basket. I leave the room. We all come back. What is everybody thinking, right? It's a very nuanced question if you think about it, right? A computer 1 year ago would not be able to answer the question. In fact, if you give ChatGPT 3.5 the question, it will give some garbage answer, right? It doesn't really know what's going on. But when I ask ChatGPT 4 this question, hey, here is a scenario, tell me what everybody is thinking, right? So it gives a very human answer. Like, for example, hey, Bala is thinking, I don't know if Sanjay noticed that I moved the cat from the box to the basket, right? Think of that. This is like a human being would think like this, right? My son is thinking, hey, I thought I left it in the box. Did my father move the cat, right? So this is a very interesting sort of insight into how human beings think. And the cat is thinking, hey, stop moving me, right? I'm in the basket, leave me alone, right? So this is the answer that GPT-4 is giving me. And obviously GPT-5 is going to be much smarter. So similarly, there is one trend which is very new. It's called emergence. And I know I'm giving you a lot of some of this jargon, but I think it's very important for you to know all of this because all of this is going to be a part of your lives. Emergence is a very important trend. So when the models are very small, so GPT-3, it could do some very simple things. It could do some simple arithmetic. It could do some basic debugging. It could understand some simple stuff. But when the model got very big, when it got into large model, it's about 70 billion parameters, it started to do line description of your code. It started to do elementary math. And GPT-4, it's starting to do advancedly creative stuff. It can do spatial reasoning. It can totally build an app from scratch. And the important part is this: nobody trained it to do all of this. Right? Nobody knew it could do all of this. Right? This is all, it sort of happened by itself. Right? So nobody is teaching all of this. They're just making the models bigger. And it is learning some of these deep connections, which we think as human. Multimodality is where you can synthesize video, audio, right? Somebody has put out a virtual girlfriend where you can talk to it for $1 a minute and she's made like $100,000. So there's a lot of startups happening. You're going to hear about a lot of startups in India, startups abroad, which are doing a lot of work on this. And I want to go quickly past this, but I want to stop here. What does this mean to you as people who are just coming into the workforce? And this is very, very important. One thing you need to know is that the knowledge economy is going to change forever. Number two is that some brand new industry will emerge, which we don't know how it will be. Like I did not know software industry will emerge in 1986. I did not know internet will be like this in 94. I just knew something new was going to happen. But lastly, most importantly, for those of you who read Asterix comics, it is like you getting a superpower, right? So you can suddenly do a lot of things. And that's what it means. And that's why you should pay attention to it. So you can be an expert. This is all very new field. Learn the tools very fast. But lastly, most importantly, don't fear the change. Don't try to resist. Try to jump in and embrace the change. This will be my last piece of advice to you. This last image on the right-hand side, for example, is created by artificial intelligence. I don't know how to use Photoshop. I don't know how to create it. I'm not an artistic person, but these are the kind of things that AI can do for you. And obviously, it's going to do a lot more in your lives going forward. So I am going to pause here. Thank you very much for listening to me. Hope I'm not taking more time, Pratna, than what has been allocated.
Yeah, no, Mr. Bala. I think this is a very insightful session. Thank you so much. I'm sure there has been a takeaway for each one of us here. And despite your busy schedule, and I understand you're not in the country currently, you have still made time for us. So we truly appreciate that and you being here with us this evening. Thank you so much.